All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Flo Studio. I like to call this our little humble abode here at MakerFlo. And this is our first podcast we're doing at MakerFlo, and this is the story of MakerFlo. And for those of you that don't know us, my name is Marc Pendergraft, and I am one of the co-founders here at MakerFlo, and I'm joined by my buddy, business partner, Mr. John Modi.
Thanks for the introduction. I want to make some other introductions.
Sure.
So let's talk a little behind the camera real quick.
Okay.
What do you think?
Sure.
All right. We got our producer and co-producer. We got Jesse and Sam in the back.
Woo.
Awesome. And today we have a peanut gallery too. So we should definitely have them clap. I told them I would tell them that you need to clap.
You don't clap.
And,
You snap.
oh, we snap. Can you please slap? All right. We got Cassie and Abraham in the back over here. So they're here for full support. So we really appreciate not only them being here, but everybody else that's on the live. So we're super excited to be here and excited to talk about.
Yeah. Well, welcome those from around the world. And this episode is the story of MakerFlo.
That's right.
So this episode, we're going to be talking about, our journey, how we began, where we came from, our upbringing, and the businesses we started, the businesses we closed, the businesses we had success along the way, maybe some funny stories and all that. And hopefully it gives the viewers and listeners something that they can connect with and understand, what it takes to start a business if you have that entrepreneurship mindset.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm super excited about it. So before we get me started, let's get started. Because I love some of our stories, and I think there's going to be, hopefully everybody enjoys, hopefully get a laugh out of it, hopefully get some smiles out of it, and hopefully we get a lot of learnings out of it. So.
Yeah. Well, let's hear, tell us a little bit about yourself, John, kind of your upbringing, where you came from, and a little bit of background.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was actually born in India, and we came here. We immigrated here about 2000. No, not 2000. 1999. I haven't said that in a while. 1999 is when we came here, and I ended up going to school here, obviously, and. My background was pretty simple. I was pretty studious, did the honors classes and did the AP classes and, played some sports. I used to play tennis but I was a pretty introverted kid actually in middle school and most of high school. So there wasn't really, I don't think business was really in my cards, to be honest with you. But with that being said, me being studious, you were a complete 360. So let's talk about you.
Yeah, well, I'm a born and raised native Arizona, pretty rare. Went to school here my whole life. But I do have business in my blood. So
that's true.
My dad had a business when he was younger. He actually had a touring business in Tucson. They would tour, get Greyhound buses and tour the caves and the gold mines in Tucson. And so it's in my blood. And I guess I've been an entrepreneur before I even knew I was an entrepreneur. So my first business, you could call it, my first hustle or side hustle was at the age of 3 years old.
That's right.
And a funny story was my parents had to tell me because I don't remember that far back. But
yeah, I was wondering that. I'm
yeah,
like, I don't remember when I was
right.
3.
That's what my parents tell me. But my parents, we always lived on the golf course, which was always fun. I've been an avid golfer since 3, but I would sell golf balls and candy bars in our backyard on the golf course. And my sister was 5. And she wasn't able to give the change back to the golfers, but here I am at 3, probably playing with like my plastic bills as a young kid, and I was able to give change back to the golfers, and then got strategic with it, and I was doing 2 for $5 deals on golf balls, and I was selling them back the golf balls that they lost in their previous round in our yard, and that's kind of how my entrepreneurship journey started.
Yeah.
And that was my first, I guess you can call it business, and through middle school and high school, I had other businesses. Some of them just being like selling like candy, at school, right? Many people do that, selling candy in your backpack at school, a little side hustle there. But one that was really good was I used to sell glow sticks on the 4th of July, which is coming up. And I would get a group of my friends and I'd buy wholesale glow sticks on eBay, right? And I made these like slingshot, like bow and arrow, like my grandma helped me make these things where I could put all the long strip glow sticks in like this bow and arrow backpack thing. And we'd go out to the parking lots of where all the fireworks would be. And I get like 3 buddies. I say, hey, I'm gonna give you guys like $50 tonight. This is the deal. We do, we sell each glow stick for $3.
Yeah.
Or 2 for $5. And we went out there and sold glow sticks, and then it was a heck of a night.
You know what the best part about that story is? Now that we know that, 4th of July is coming,
Yeah.
and we have a team. What do you guys think?
We could do a team event.
Yeah.
You know, we got enough people. We could probably cover most of Phoenix and all the fireworks.
Yeah, I like it. I like the idea.
Yeah.
But that's where you're 2 for 5. Like now I get it. Like you started so early on, and then as you know, our progression happened, you already knew these things. So like when we met, like it was shocking that you kind of knew all these things, and I was like, how does he know all these things? You know, but that makes so much sense that you started you had such a head start that you had this experience beforehand.
Yeah.
But I think there are some stories that you also can't tell, which maybe like if we ever meet everyone in a live session, we can tell them the other story that you can't tell over the air, sort of.
Yeah, there's some stories that I'm not supposed to talk about. But.
Yeah. For when we meet in person.
Yeah, in-person meetups. Come ask me, DM me, and I'll talk to you about it, or call me and we'll talk. But John and I have been we've been friends for a long time. Let's talk a little bit about that and how we met. I mean, we went to the same middle school.
Yeah.
Right, and now at our age, we've known each other for over 20 years.
Let's not calculate it.
Yeah,
there's no need to calculate it.
We knew each other in middle school. For those of you that don't know, John and I knew each other since middle school.
Yeah.
Went to the same high school.
That's right.
Like you said, you were studious. I was running businesses and
that's right.
Into sports always. And,
I just didn't know that you could run a business at that age, right? Like, and my path was more to to be studious and then get the job, whereas your path was, well, I never understood it, especially in middle school. So I'm like, what is this kid doing? Like, I don't get it, right? But that at the end of the day, I guess it didn't end up mattering because our paths ended up meeting. Oh, that sounds so gushy, but you get the point. It kept on meeting. But I think the moral of that entire story is that we didn't really have I wouldn't say we had like a runway that we were gonna grow a business and scale it. I don't think you at that time thought that maybe you were gonna get there. You were doing the side hustle. I certainly didn't think so. But yeah, like we did our thing, and our paths eventually. We left high school because we went to the same high school, and then our paths eventually met. And mostly, we got lucky because I don't know if you want to talk about that a little bit.
Well, we reconnected in the library. That's in college
at Arizona State.
Yeah, and we were both studying finance. And we started studying together, right? We're like, we went to the same high school. Let's hang out. Let's study. And you kind of knew my background of business and running businesses, and you had.
Well, let me cut you off there. I think there's a huge lesson to be learned in that story that I don't know if we've spent time talking about it, right?
Sure.
But it's so important as a business person to never lose an opportunity to connect with somebody, right? Mm. You and I were not friends. Like, I mean, we were friends, but we were not like best friends. We never went for a burger, or we never like hung out. We knew of each other. There was a good rapport that we had built. We had a few classes in middle school, but I keep thinking about it, and you can call it kismet if you want, but in that library, again, this is gonna sound so gushy. In the library, whatever interaction you and I had, you remembered my name. And the interaction literally goes that we walked by each other, and you remembered my name, and that's where it all started. You turned around and you were like, and you called my name out, and I was like, man, I think I know that kid too, and that's where it started, right? And we started talking, and then we had the classes together, and that little interaction, I think, is the reason we're sitting here together. Because if that wouldn't have happened, I don't know where we would have been. So, and that all just really goes back to, if you are in business, never discount an interaction. You just never know.
Even from a young age, in school, in high school, and middle school, I mean, give people benefit of the doubt, be cordial with people, don't burn bridges, because you never know when you're going to walk past each other at the library.
You never know. And I think we have so many of those stories, but we'll leave that for another time, maybe in person again.
So you had a proposal for me as we started taking classes together, and tell me a little bit about that proposal.
Yeah, so when we had started, Marc had sort of he had told me his story, and I was so intrigued. And my thing was always like, hey, I want to be the idea person, right? I want to go with ideas, and I want to come up with innovative products or services, or I knew I wanted to do something that had to do with coming up with solutions, right? But I knew from the very beginning that I was not a doer. And I think that's one big thing you and I have learned from our relationship, whatever, 15, 20 years ago, is who we are, right? And I knew that I wasn't a doer, but I saw Marc was a doer, right? I was like, man, this kid, he thinks it and he does it, and it was incredible. And when I got the idea for our first business, I was like, I know I'm not going to do it. And I came to you and I'm like, I proposed it. I was like, hey, here's the business. I think here's what we can make. I think I have found a supplier, and like let's go for it. And I think I had to convince Marc for like a solid like hour and a half. He's like, nah, like I'm done with the business life. Like I have a good job and this and that. And he was like, nah, I don't want to do it.
So I had just shut down a business prior a year or two ago for circumstantial reasons, but I said no to you at first.
You did.
I was like, no, I'm good. I was just getting into my career, about to finish school. I was a business banker. at that time I was a teller at Chase.
Yeah.
I was a teller. Then I became a personal banker and a business banker. But at that time I was just like, I'm good. I'm on this career path. I'm good to go.
That's right.
But you didn't stop.
Well, I didn't stop because I knew Marc had the itch. I knew he wanted to be a business person, and he had it in him. I always saw him at school hustling. There was no and I think the cooler part about Marc at the beginning was that he was not only hustling, but he was getting the science award of the year, right? And
I forgot about that.
And I kind of thought like you took that away from me. But Marc was studious as well, and it was incredible to me. And I was like, man, this there's a future here. There's something here, and I really thought he was such a doer. And I'm like, no, I have to convince him. And I think persistence is another big part when you're starting a business. Sometimes you can't take a no. Like you have to, if you feel it in your gut, which again has been a big philosophy between us, is that gut feeling, right? And you feel like this is the path, like you might have to push a little. And I pushed a little, but I didn't push the same thing. I came at you from another way.
Yeah.
Right? And whatever I did at that time, however I came at Marc, what happened after that?
Well, you showed me the numbers and what some of these people were doing in this industry, and I was like, okay, I got experience with this.
Yeah.
And I made a decision one night, let's go for it, right? John had already found this factory, and the proposal was to start this women's shoe business.
That's right.
Selling rollable slippers. We ended up calling the company Backup Soles.
That's right.
And they would roll up in a small ball, so you could keep them in your purse or your clutch or your pocket. So when you were tired of wearing high heels at night or walking around and partying, you could switch into your Backup Soles.
Right.
And so you got everything planned out. You found a factory, and that night I made the website. I took the photos. I made a website. I woke up, or maybe I sent you a message late at night. I said, John's ready to go. Site is ready. We can get sales.
And I didn't know what that even meant. I was like, oh, the site's ready. Okay, well, what does it mean? Like, are we millionaires? Are we like what does happen?
I mean, back then there wasn't even, I don't know, Shopify even existed.
It was Homestead.
I built it on Homestead.
Homestead.
And it was so like rudimentary, click and play.
HTML.
And, man, times changed.
Yeah, for real. But what a journey that was, though. But I think Backup Soles was a great product, and I think there was so many learnings, right? There was so many learnings at Backup Soles. Everything from buying a product overseas for the first time, and it wasn't even China.
Yeah.
I think that was the intriguing part. The fact that you and I took all our savings and wired money to somebody we had never met before. Yeah. That was insanity.
It was a big risk.
That was a big risk. And like, I think we consulted with our parents. Like, it's like, hey, like, this is all we have. Like, we're sending it over. We don't know what's going to happen.
We're going all in.
Yeah. We were just hoping to God that we sent the money and product was going to come. And I think it was just so crazy back then. And it might seem so normal today because it happened so much, but you have to understand back then, like, it wasn't normal, right? And we just kind of lobbied it. And I think I still remember getting backlash, like, that was probably not a good idea. And I'm like, well, you got to risk it for the biscuit, right? And so we kind of went with it. But I think that was definitely my first time I think that was the first time I took the biggest risk in my life.
Yeah.
Right? And sometimes you have to take that risk, right? And I was ready to take that risk. And I think one thing that I learned from that experience was that was the first time that I went all in.
Yeah.
Right. Backup Soles was that business that I decided that this was going to be it. This was going to be the start of our journey to become a business owner and leave my corporate job, which Marc had said earlier that he had done a lot at, he was at Chase. I'd actually started my corporate journey at 17, and I ended up becoming a financial analyst at 19 at U-Haul. And I was actually managing quite a few U-Hauls, and I was managing their P&L statements. But at the end of the day, I knew that, you know, I didn't want to do the corporate thing. And
Yeah.
Backup Souls was my first step into just, I think it was my first step into that risk that you'd already experienced, but I never had in my life.
Well, what was crazy is we not only were in school, we had full-time corporate jobs,
Yeah.
and then here we are trying to start a business.
Yeah.
And not only just a business like most people might start them by themselves, but with a partner.
Yeah.
And I had never been in a partnership before.
Correct.
And here you are proposing this, and maybe I had some worries about that, but then here we are 20 plus years later, like, holy cow.
Yeah.
And I'm so lucky to have you as a partner, you know, and it's incredible, like the journey we've been on, because not all partnerships are like the ones me and you have.
Yeah.
And that's a testament to like the dedication, the path that we've been on, you know, us being communicative on what we want out of life, you know, and it's been an amazing journey with you so far.
Yeah, and likewise, and I think likewise, because if you really look at it, and I mean, obviously everyone's not going to know this, but we've been advised over the years so many times to have a partnership agreement.
Yeah.
But in the last 15 to 20 years, we don't have a partnership agreement.
So what's some advice to some of the listeners out there? Like, okay, I am looking to get into business with somebody.
Yeah.
You know, what should they be thinking about? What questions should they be asking that partner, and how should they formulate that?
I think for us, the biggest thing that has been the most integral part about our relationship and our partnership is talking about what we want out of life.
Yeah.
Right? Like, what are your core values? And the core values don't have to be business core values, but they have to be like your personal values and what you want out of life. Because no matter what you do, every time that's what it all comes back to is, you know, the question of what is the point of all this,
Yeah.
right? And what do you want out of life? And it's not the same for you. It's not really the same for us, but the core of it there might be some similarities that we can feed off of each other. And I think that's something that you know, resonates with us and, you know, keeps us together like a relationship like it is, you know? And so I think my one thing would be have that discussion first. So you have the truest expectation out of each other, right? If you go with somebody and their core values that I want to make $1 billion, right? And but your core values that you just want to have a very safe, you know, home for your family,
Yeah.
and just have enough. Well, your goals are so far apart. You're going to have so many problems in that
Yeah.
relationship, right?
Some people might not want to scale a business to XYZ. They might be
Correct.
satisfied with this, right? So I think it's an important factor to talk to your partner about, okay, where's the end goal? What is our overarching goal
Yeah.
of this business? Do we want to run it forever? Do we want to sell it one day? Are we happy at certain sales revenue and profitability?
Correct.
And that's the discussions we've had, you know, to really set that alignment together to be successful as partners.
Yeah.
And one thing I'm proud of is, and you can talk about how we make this happen, is we've never had a blowout, an argument. We've never really gotten mad at each other. Like, how is that even possible?
Yeah, well, like you're pointing to me
Yeah.
like I'm the reason, but I mean you're involved in it too.
But you put it together and
Yeah, so I think a big part of what brings it in for me is that you know, quite a long time ago, actually I think when I was about 17, 18, you know, my path, I always knew this was to help others, right? And I actually have a whiteboard where I had planned out a nonprofit that ran at a 98% efficiency. That was my big thing. You know, 2% admin cost, 98% goes back. And I think the big thing was, for me, was always figuring out how do I help people. And eventually I came up with Be Good, Do Good, Spread Good, right? And what Be Good, Do Good, Spread Good, it's actually, and we'll talk about this some other time, but it's a nonprofit Marc and I have. We don't really advertise it much, but it's kind of there. But it basically stands for, you know, you should think good for yourself and others. You should do good to yourself and others. And if you do those things, then naturally you're gonna spread good, right? Mm-hmm. And I think from the beginning, that's always been my thing, and the way we have ran MakerFlow is that I know that, you know, I think good for you and you think good to me, good for me, right? And we are not abusive to each other, right?
Yeah.
We do good things for each other, and at the end of the day, it spreads goodness. So I think in knowing that philosophy, you know, if there is a disagreement, and the way I think the way you're making it sound, it's like we don't disagree on things, but
Sure.
we do. We have opposite opinions.
Yeah.
But the way you look at it is like, okay, is he thinking good at the idea? And if your strong about it, if you're like, no, this is a good idea, I'm willing to back off and be like, all right. But the key thing here is whoever agrees with the other, it's 100% agreement that you're backing that person.
Yeah.
That's the key about the whole thing.
We're not going to point fingers at the end and say, hey, I told you so. If you're passionate about a decision and the direction we want to go, yeah, I might play some devil's advocate, which is important to really see the whole picture. But if that's the direction we decide to go, and if it doesn't turn out to be the best decision, well, then what do you got to do? You got to look at what is the next best decision you
Correct.
can make. I can't come back to you and point a finger and get mad at you. We got to move on and move past that.
Yeah, because what you said, we're in this together.
Yeah.
Right. So we can't be on a path of basically, we can't make a decision. So we make a decision. It's a decision we take together, and we move forward with that decision. And I think our thing has been to keep moving forward.
Yeah, that's powerful. How do you think things would have ended up if you started a business on your own? You think you would be as successful?
I wouldn't have started a business on my own. No, absolutely not. No, like I said, I'm not a doer. I'm not a doer. And what that means is like it sounds like I don't do anything. but what I mean is like I get caught up in like for example, something very simple that I was so impressed when we had Homestead is Marc figured out how to have a payment gateway set up. And I was like, okay, I was actually building websites, coding websites through HTML back then. Yeah. But I was only making informational website. But as much information as we have today, where you can just go to ChatGPT and say, hey, give me the code or give me this, or what do I need to do to add the payment gateway? And what payment gateway is basically, how do you add, PayPal? How do you take payment
Visa,
on your website?
MasterCard, yeah.
I had no idea how to do that. And I still have this memory. I still remember. I came the next day and you were like, the website's done. And I think I still remember going, so we could take payment on it? And you're like, yeah, it's all set up. And I was like, wow, this is why I pushed, because I knew your strengths, and I've always known your strengths, and I think each of us knowing so much about each other has really helped us, and us leaning into that has been even more powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's take a step back and let's get back to the backup souls days, right? We're in school, we're doing the shoe business, like things are going, and we're happy with the sales. Like there was a moment where we decided that it was time for you to quit your day job and your corporate job. And this is like a pivotal moment in the business. It's like, hey, I think we're there where we need to have one of us focus on the business full time. And you want to kind of speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, we got to a point where things really got serious. And when I mean like we were actually working and doing shoes for like Toyota, Facebook.
We're in vending machines in Las Vegas and
right.
California nightclubs. We were in vending machines at these nightclubs where people were just buying our shoes and off the Vegas Strip. It was incredible.
Yeah, I mean, at the time it was innovative. Like it was different. Like who was selling shoes out of a vending machine, right?
Yeah.
And we were actually, I think we were barely at the time. We could barely even get into the club, if I remember right. I think we were like 22, and I remember being at a rooftop bar, and they're like, "Can you guys even drink?" and I mean, we were pretty young back then, right? And I think there was a moment where, I mean, things started to obviously get serious. And I remember realizing that if we want to take this to the next level, one of us had to quit. And, I'll tell you right now, a lot of our stories sound like Marc and I have been married forever. But I remember back then thinking that one of us has to have a job to support the other. and we decided.
Did I make more money back then? I
Probably.
don't know.
But I guess I decided I'd saved quite a bit of money. I had saved enough money where I calculated that if worst came to worst, for 2 years I could figure something out and not work, right?
And the strategy was keep expenses low, right?
Correct.
We're working out of my house.
Correct.
Right? We're on our computer in our room. We're taking our garage and we're putting shelves up to stock inventory.
I still remember we went to Goodwill and got 2 executive tables for $15, and one of the legs was like broken. And I still remember, I think we probably still have pictures, and every time we took a picture of us back then, we made sure the table was not but we got a ping pong table because at the time I'd read somewhere that's the best cheap shipping table to get at the time, and because there was so much space that you could actually ship on it, put stuff on it. It was like a great table for a business if you don't want to get something crazy. Like if you went to Uline, those tables are not cheap,
Yeah.
I think we got like a used ping pong table. By the way, all this was happening in Marc's house. He was gracious enough to, have his house. Our warehouse for boxes was your living room.
Yeah.
We used to store all the inventory in your garage, and it like we slowly just started to take over your house. And I think at that point when it got serious, I'd made the decision to sort of leave. I don't know if you know this, but the day I quit, right? The day I quit, I got a premium parking spot.
Yeah.
That was 10 feet from my desk, which
They tried to keep you with that?
no. They had no idea. So I had gone into my boss's office, and she's like, "Hey, I have some good news. You got a premium parking spot." They gave me a raise, and I had an opportunity to go work in another department for more money, all on the same day. Like, it happened like within a couple of days, but the premium parking spot and the raise was then. And the day that I got the premium parking spot and the raise is the day that I ended up quitting. And it was so close. It was so enticing to just be like, man, I've been waiting for this for 5 whole years.
You were amped up, huh?
I was amped. I was like, this is like what everyone at the company looks for. And I think that was also, like, when that happened, I'm like, wow, I waited 5 years for a parking spot. And I think it kind of gave me a little bit, like, it was exciting at first because you were waiting, right?
Yeah.
But then I was like, 5 years for, like, what am I going to get 5 years later? Like, I'm going to get a new chair? Like, it was exciting, but then a slap in the face at the same time.
Yeah.
And the funny thing was, I hadn't gotten a raise in 3 years. And the raise that I got that year was $1,200 after 3 years. And I was, and my manager was extremely excited to give me that raise.
Yeah.
Like, it was a huge favor. And I was like, I've been busting butt here.
Yeah.
But anyways, there's a lot to that story.
Well, I'm fortunate you were able to take that leap of faith. I'm sure your family is like, what are you doing? Marc's keeping his career job, and here you are dipping out on your career and trying to sell these women's shoes. So I'm thankful for that. But my question to you is, like, there comes that moment, and I'm sure a lot of our viewers and listeners are like, they have a small business, they have a side hustle, they're also working a full-time job or a part-time job. But how do you know when to take that leap of faith, and like, okay, this is it. I need to quit my job, and I'm going to do my business full-time.
Yeah, it's funny, I've thought about that quite a bit, and I think there's a 50-50 on that. 50% is butterflies. 50%, you have no idea. Like, you just have to take the leap of faith. Mm. And 50% of it was calculated. I've never really told you this, but I started thinking about quitting a while ago, and I started saving. I told you that, hey, I have this car that I bought, and I'm willing to sell it. Like, I told you that, if it comes to it, I'm willing to do this, this, and this. And I had plan A, plan B, plan C, if it didn't work out. But I think, and I know I have not told you this before, I was so in that I was like, if Marc, stays at his job and things don't go right, you were making your salary, you were going like you were. I was so committed to doing this that I didn't want anything from it. Mm-hmm. Like, I was like, I'm not going to ask you for anything. Like, this is my commitment. And I wanted to show you, like, this is my commitment. I had saved up. And if things don't work out, we just part ways, And I think that made it a bit easier, because I think if I would have came in and been like, you know what, you owe me half your salary and your savings, and you owe me this, and you owe me that. And I think it was the confidence I had in our future, mm-hmm. right? It's the confidence that I had in that if I gave this a chance, and I partnered up with Marc, and I teamed up with Marc, that we would have a better future. And these little things in the beginning, I'm not gonna bicker over. And I think that gave me a lot of confidence. However, I did get depressed for a year when things didn't work out. And maybe we can get into that a little bit. But I think that gave me the confidence to just go for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Setting the expectations low and not expecting anything out of you. Holding most of the responsibility on myself, like, I'm doing this, I'm making this decision, I have plan A, B, and C, and I think my only requirement for you was that, if things work out, you got to sell your crotch rocket, and you had to sell, you had to do a couple of things, right? But that was mostly to ground ourselves, but I did that. I did it for a while.
Yeah.
But you had to come to terms with that too, meaning you had to quit your job at some point too.
Well, that comes down the road, but when you took your leap of faith, it was truly a leap of faith. We didn't necessarily have the sales or revenue to support,
right.
You living
I was,
your life.
I was not making a salary. So every day, like, you know, if I wanted to get breakfast, if I wanted to get lunch, like it was out of my savings, and I didn't want to ask Marc for anything, right? And I wanted the business to be so lean and clean that I was dipping into my savings for a year. Anything I wanted to do, it was not like if I wanted to go out to eat or you know, do whatever, I wasn't trying to dip into the business. I wasn't like, Marc, you owe me this much. To me, I think when I looked forward 5 years and 10 years, $1,000 or $2,000, I was like, you know, I will work a third job to figure it out, but I don't want to ruin the relationship right at the get-go and fight and bicker about little things, because I saw so much in you that if we partner up, we could do so much more, and we could do we could do bigger things.
Yeah.
And well, you know, not to toot my own horn, but paid off.
Yeah, so I think it's important to really have a plan and strategy and really have a savings, right? If you're going to take a leap of faith, well, you better have this plan of how long, right? I think one day,
Yes.
one time back then, you said, hey, we're good for at least 6 months or something like that, right?
Yeah.
We've got this plan where if we didn't make a dime for the next 6 months, we're good. We have this saved up, we have this inventory, and that put me at ease, like, okay, let's take this leap.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's kind of when your thing came in, because to some point we needed the house too.
Yeah.
So your salary was sort of, you know, you were paying the mortgage. See, I keep telling you, it comes back to like we were married, but you were paying the mortgage, obviously, and you did give the opportunity for the business to grow as well, and I definitely saw that, you know. But yeah, there did come that time. But I think going back to what you asked me before, if we let the small things go and focus on, like what Kate likes to say, on the high impact things, which we did, right? It really gives us a chance to leverage and do bigger things.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about some of the learnings we had with starting Backup Souls and how we try to grow that brand a little bit. So, you know, back then, you know, as far as the sales funnel was, you know, concerned, it wasn't much of a funnel to be had. It was pretty much just Google Ads, right? And spending some money on Google Ads. Social media wasn't even really a thing back then.
MySpace.
Was it MySpace?
It was MySpace.
But you know, some of the learnings I remember is that we were very dependent on the Google Ads.
Yes.
Like if we weren't spending X amount on ads, we knew we weren't getting X amount in return.
Correct.
And we became overly dependent on that, but that also caused us to shift our mindset and our focus to other sales channels. And what we came across was, how do we sell these more in bulk at a larger scale? And we started focusing on wholesale.
Yes.
So then what we came about was like, wow, people are wanting to buy these shoes for weddings and events and giveaways. And we started exploring that, and we started getting into the promotional product industry.
Yeah.
And it's as we talk about our journey, it's so interesting how we have so many pivots and turns, and just the way the business drove us into different channels.
Yeah.
And so if you want to talk a little bit about, you know, that.
Yeah, I think we both we both didn't exactly know where to take Backup Souls. I think that's the most important part. We didn't, like, we were, first of all, selling a woman's shoe. We never wore heels. So whenever we went to sell, you know, the shoes to a woman, they're like, what do you even know about this? So just a little quick side story. I did spend some time walking in heels. Honestly, I don't know why you guys do it. It hurts like hell. And when I got to 6 inches, I did almost wreck my ankle. But then when we started talking to women, you know, they were like, well, it makes me feel more confident. It makes my legs look good. It makes me taller. There were many reasons, you know, why women were wearing heels, right? And I think that was our first discovery on, we need to listen to our customer. Mm-hmm. You can't just get a product and sell it for no reason. Yeah. There has to be a reason, right? And I think when we really started understanding the product, we were doing a lot better. But we learned that, but we didn't really understand how to market. There was no like marketing. We took marketing in college. Yeah. But the kind of marketing we needed, we just didn't really learn, and so we were having trouble with it. Yeah. But we did learn wholesale, and I think one of the things that really why MakerFlow exists is because through Backup Souls, right? Through Backup Souls is one of the first times that we were introduced to customization and promo, right? We definitely were doing wholesale, but the wholesale led us to, hey, you're willing to sell us 200 shoes, but can I get this logo on it,
Yeah.
right? Or hey, you're willing to sell it, can I get my wedding name on it,
Yeah.
right? For as favors.
Yeah, we were letting customers really drive that purchase journey and drive the journey of the business growing.
Yeah.
You know, when we had customers reaching out, it's like, can I get my wedding logo on there? We're like, we never really thought of that. We thought this
Yeah.
was just for nightclubs.
Yeah.
And here we are, people are putting them in the bathrooms at weddings with the monogram of the bride and groom. Like, okay, here's an idea we need to capture on.
Yeah, and we learned a lot. I mean, and I think, again, access to data today, it's so massive, it's so fast to learn, but at them, I felt like it was an epiphany after epiphany, but that also becomes a problem, right? If you have too many ideas, you know, your resources get scarce, you just go all over the place. And I think that's something we experienced is that, you know, there's this opportunity and we're like, well, we can put these on cruise ships and we can put these on, it'd be great for airplanes, but we had no idea how to even do that. Like, what do you do? You go on a cruise ship? Like, you know, we had no clue. And I think, but one thing we did nail down, and this is the first time that we started screen printing, right? So that's the first thing we customized was screen printing the bags that we used to give, you know, folks the backup soles in, the shoes in, because when you put, you know, the backup soles on, you take your heels off and you needed a bag. So we used to customize those bags. So we learned how to do screen printing. And for all the screen printers out there, kudos to you, because I still hate it to this day. But that was our first run into doing screen printing, into customizing. We really grew that business we grew that business. You know, we did a lot with it. We personalized and customized a lot. But I think we really screwed up because we didn't have good margins.
Yeah.
Between running Google Ads, right, and with not understanding how to price our products and how to incorporate our time and other costs, our overhead, and how to truly understand that and price it, I think we really failed at really earning a profit. And no matter how you cut things, right, business comes down to that, right? It is profitability. I don't think it's 100% profitability, but you have to focus on that, right? Yeah. So I think backup soles to me was a lot of learnings, a lot of failure, but a lot of learnings that we took to sort of came to MakerFlow. But I think the biggest learning was how impactful customization is. Yeah. Right? So
I mean, it allows you to grow your business and have that competitive advantage, you know, and really be unique in the ways you want to be unique.
Absolutely.
You know, based on how you want to customize that product. But you know, another learning that we had with backup soles was like, we thought we would start this brand and it would be so easy and this brand would just build. But building a brand is not that simple.
Yeah.
The amount of money to the cost of acquiring a customer kept increasing. To get that customer back wasn't as easy as we thought it would be. And we really learned after backup soles was like, wow, you really have to have a full funnel approach.
Correct.
Outside of just paid ads, right? You need to have social media, right? You got to have a presence, you know, maybe locally in your community. And there's just a lot to it than just ads.
Yeah, I think, well, you know, I think for small businesses, it's not fair because you do so much, right? And you get that first sale and you get that second sale and you get the 100th sale. And it's exciting because you work so hard to get a sale, right? And I think there's a bit of, you know, it's just excitement that you were able to, you work so hard, you might have not known you sold something, right? But I think that's where we falter, right? And that's where we faltered is we forgot about the customer.
Yeah.
Right? We got so excited that we built this, right? But it doesn't stop there. Like now you got the customer, now you have to service the customer, right? And it's like they say, once you build your list, it's free after that, right? But at the same time, the customer does want to get service to some extent, right? And again, if you get a lot of emails from me, I'm sorry. I'm just trying to service you. I just want to put that out there, side note. but yes, there's a journey, and I'm not, you know, we're not going to sit here and say that at MakerFlow that, you know, we don't try to follow that. Where, you know, we're trying to create this journey and try to create this relationship with every customer because, yes, the acquisition cost, as expensive it was before, I think it's 10 times more expensive today. Yeah. Right? And making sure that we're providing the right resources and doing the right things to service the customer today is as important as it was back then. And I wish we would have understood that back then because I still love the Backup Souls product.
I think I still have some in my garage, maybe a little dry rotted, but
by the way, another time, a little side note, and this is actually a pretty funny story because Marc was not home for this, but his house garage caught on fire and we almost lost all our inventory. And I called him at 3 a.m. in the morning and I was like, hey, Marc, your house is on fire and I think we're about to lose our business and you're about to lose your house. And he goes, is the fire department there? And I was like, yeah. It's like, so everything's okay? He's like, yeah. And he's like, all right, well, I'll check it out tomorrow morning. And he just went back to sleep.
You know what Dr. K says is focus on the things that you can control. And
That's
hey,
true.
I couldn't control it, but you said it was under control, and so
I did.
things were handled. So I let it be. But that was a crazy time, and I did ask if the dogs were okay.
You did,
and
you
the
did.
dogs were
And they
good.
were,
So
yes.
that was important to me. So you don't want to overly stress about things that you can't control.
That's true.
And so you had it handled, and I appreciated that. So based on the businesses we've had, if you were to look back at your younger self,
Yeah.
about starting a business, what advice would you give yourself?
Oh man. By the way, as you can see, this is not. Marc has questions, but I have no idea what he's going to ask me. and I love winging it, right? And that's a good one. I would I'm all about this, and I always say this is you have to know what you want out of life.
Mm-hmm.
It might sound cliche, it might sound like, well, that's so far fetched, but you have to know what you want in life, right? And my goal since I was 17, I still have the whiteboard. I can't erase it because it's so in there, right? It is be good, do good, and spread good, right? And that's been at the core of everything. Whether I'm at work, actually, or whether it's the MakerFlow shirts, whether I'm at work, whether it's my personal life, whatever it is, my car license plate is be good, do good, spread good. I believe in that, right? And for me, I would say that, I would just say to myself, whatever I got into is to take my core value and lean into it and use it as support, and just know that it's gonna be there no matter times are good and no matter times are bad, and just make sure that you're supporting your core value. And I think the reason for that is, when we started Backup Souls, right? I did fall into a bit of depression. I used to be home and things weren't going well, and I used to like be in bed and you just cry. You just don't know what to do. Things aren't going well. You're not making money. I obviously wanted to make sure that our partnership continued because I saw something there, but I saw failure in myself, right? And I would just tell that person like, hey, everything's gonna be okay, right? As long as you just keep thinking good thoughts, right?
Yeah.
Keep doing the best you can, and good will come out of it, right?
Yeah.
And knowing that core value, and I know that that's what I want out of life is exactly that. I think is really, once I learned that, then everything just became easy. So now if we have a hard time, I always lean back on, okay, be good, just do good. Everything will work itself out and eventually spread
Yeah, I
good.
think a lot of people starting businesses, they're like, I want to be my own boss, right? Like, oh my God, the freedom and flexibility that brings. Be your own boss. You don't have to go and punch in somewhere, right? But there's a lot more to that, right? If you want freedom and flexibility, then you have to work as hard or as not as hard as you want.
Yeah.
You're in control of how much you make or how little you make.
true.
You're in control of how many hours you work or don't work. So that's something that, man, if I were to tell myself, like, it's a lot of fun at first, right? But sometimes it can become overwhelming. But at the same time, it's like, hey, you wanted this, you signed up for this, you wanted the power and the freedom, you can't give up now. You got to keep going.
So I'll flip that back to you. So why are you doing it?
Well, I still like my freedom. I still like the challenge, really. For me,
Yeah.
it's like, I like getting into the weeds of things. And I like, people are like, I can't do that. For me, it's like, I'm going to figure out how to do that.
Yeah.
And that's what excites me, is chasing the challenge.
Yeah, and I think as for you, if you'd ask anybody, you're definitely that guy. If you're walking into the warehouse or anything, you're ready to point out this and be like, well, why not?
Yeah.
Why not? Or we could do it better, right? And I think I've learned a lot of that from you as well. And I'm always questioning myself that too. Is like, why not? Why can't we do it? Why can't we be faster? Why can't it be cleaner?
You always got to reach for more efficiencies and just for better. You just got to always better yourself.
Yeah. I think that goes for personal too, but I think if we just kind of bring it back a little bit with MakerFlow, with Backup Souls, I think a big learning we've had in kind of the making of MakerFlow is understanding that we have to always be ready to pivot, right? You always have to be ready to pivot, especially today with how fast things are going, right? I think at MakerFlow alone, in the last 2 years, we've pivoted like 3 times because of how fast AI is just completely thrown everything for a loop. And we're always thinking about what can we do better? What can we not do better, right? And I think having that mindset and thinking that, I always thought like starting a business, we would start something and just kind of chill. Yeah. The whole thing in college, they say, well, start a business and you just go lay at a beach and it'll run itself.
Well, they say if you're not growing, you're dying, right? So
yes.
if you're just chilling, you're going down.
Yeah. And there is some truth to that because we sort of experienced that, right? With MakerFlow especially.
When you think you've made it, you better think again because you haven't made it for very long and it's going to change real quick.
Yeah. And it happens to the best of us.
Yeah.
Even the giant companies to the smaller companies. But I think knowing that you have to be vigilant, you have to be aware. I think it would be a huge lesson that everyone should follow.
Yeah.
Like just be aware and don't. The minute you sit back and you think that you've made it is it's probably not the best idea.
So let's move on to the next customization business we had. So as we were doing backup soles, we had a customer that wanted a custom display box for the shoes, right?
Yeah.
And you did some research and you're like, man, how are we going to make this wooden box and this display box? And you did a bunch of research and came across this place called Tech Shop, where they had screen printing that we could do the screen printing at, and then they had laser engraving machines that we could literally cut out the wood, glue the wood together and make a display box, and that's how we came across laser engraving.
Yeah, and I had to we were finance majors, right? And so when I ended up finding Tech Shop, it was subsidized by ASU,
Yeah.
and so I got to kind of have that ASU.edu ID, go into the Tech Shop and kind of play with it, and because obviously I didn't have a job because I quit. I had more time than Marc did, so I was going in there. I learned how to do. I learned Adobe Illustrator myself. Self-taught, and you have to understand that YouTube was just kind of becoming a thing, so there wasn't much out there, right? So you just kind of go and you just kind of do stuff, and you fail. And fortunately, Tech Shop had a very good. There was good camaraderie, so there were good people there that were teaching, and I was able to make this box by literally dot by dot because there was no box maker, and I made this huge box display for backup soles where you could put the shoes. And I think the coolest part was that the lid would slide in to make it a box, or you took the lid off and you put it up for the weddings, right? And so and that is how we got introduced to sort of lasering,
and that was in 2015. We've hit our 10-year mark of being into the laser engraving industry. It was 2015 we started that. I remember when you showed me that laser machine and what you were able to make on there, and I was blown away. And here I go, my mind thinking, and I'm like, all the things we can do with this. This is incredible. This was before X Tools was a thing, and all these other the availability of the machines back then was not even there. And if it was super expensive.
Yeah, I mean it was all commercial engravers, right? And I think the cheapest engraver that you could probably find was like $25,000 to $30,000. Now, granted, today $25,000 to $30,000. It was a bigger sum 20 years ago. Right. It was a lot, like $25,000 to $30,000. So we ended up stumbling upon that. We ended up learning AI ourselves, and this is where I'm a doer came in.
Well, I took $100.
Right.
And I went to Walmart. I went to Michael's. I grabbed some wood boxes. I grabbed some baseballs. I grabbed some plywood. All the things I'm thinking this laser machine could engrave on. And what do? We engrave a groomsman box, we engrave some baseballs, we make some wedding decor hearts and keychains and stuff, and we put it online, and what happens? It sells.
What everyone hopes.
It sells, and we're like, oh my gosh, we're onto something. And before you know it, we're calling up all the Michael shops around town because we have an order for like 150 boxes that we had to stain the dark walnut color, and it was from some corporate event. We're trying to collect, 30 from this store, 12 from this store, and we end up like buying out all the Michael's stock of those wooden boxes to fulfill that order.
I remember we used to have to go to Joann's and cut the felt and then glue the felt.
Yeah,
right
about that.
Yep, and then we had to stain the boxes, and then this is where we started hiring family. Which, by the way, if you're in business, definitely look for warm people to hire first, because it's very helpful, right? It's a little bit easier than going out because we didn't know how to hire, right?
Yeah.
But anyways, I think. the big lesson out of that is we ended up getting a little bit lucky, right? Because first of all, we went out there, we tried something new, and the platform at the time was pretty nubile. There weren't that many sellers on there. And so we did get,
Yeah.
I don't know if it's lucky or the timing was right, whatever you want to call it, but I would say that we went out there and we tried something and it worked, right? And it worked. And I think we were like one of the initial ones that engraved a baseball by hand, eyeballing. And by the way, engraving baseballs, eyeballing is tough because I never did it. He did. I didn't have 20/20 vision back then. I got LASIK later, but he used to eyeball every baseball, and we were selling like 40, 50 baseballs at a time. This guy used to spend 2 minutes, put the baseballs in the jigs, and I used to be like, oh my God, please engrave them in the middle, and play, and just walk away like it wasn't a big deal. And I was over here stressing out and be like, please engrave in the center.
Yeah. I
still remember that. And times when you were not there and I had to do baseballs, I did everything not to engrave them and wait for Marc. But the baseball was the first product, right, that I was so irritated by that I ended up making my first jig.
Oh yeah.
The baseball was the first jig that I ended up making because doing it one at a time from your Chase Bank job baseball stand that you got. Remember that?
The Chase Bank baseball stand.
You had a souvenir ball and you're like, I think this is gonna work, and he got the stand at engraving.
Remember the upsell we had on baseballs?
No, what was that?
The cases.
Oh my gosh, yes.
We used to upsell the clear plastic cases that we would buy in bulk for an extra like $10 or something, and that was like one of our upsells.
Yeah, I don't know why we never engraved those. So I think we just, anyways. Yeah, but nostalgic.
But here we are, selling online, selling on Etsy, buying up local supplies, right? And then we started buying up Amazon supplies. I remember the next best product we had was those watch boxes. We were engraving on the glass of the watch boxes, and we're literally buying out all the stock on Amazon. We're just like seeing how many it lets us put in. 45. Oh, let's make it 45. Let me try to see if it lets 65. Oh, nope. You got somewhere in there is how many they have in stock. We'd buy all that stock.
Yeah.
And we're like, okay, well, what do we do next after we bought out local stock and we bought out all the Amazon stock? What's next?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we weren't left an option.
Yeah.
There was only one option, right? And it was to make it ourselves.
Yeah.
There was really if Amazon doesn't have it, and it was a bit of a specialty product. Walmart and all these guys back then, they wouldn't have a watch box. And again, keep in mind, watches at the time were just becoming like a fashion trend where everyone, So it was just coming into fashion, and our next thing was to go overseas and make it ourselves. But then we ran into a problem, right? We dealt with it with backup souls, but we had never dealt with it at the scale.
The scale had gone up quite a bit.
Yeah, and the capital we had to put out,
Yeah.
the dollars we had to put out to start this, it was getting serious. Because in order to get that big of a product, to get the right price for it, and to get the volume, because they had minimums, it had to be, we had to basically get a container, right? And China is somewhere that we had never been to. So again, this was something blindly we did. We did our best to get samples. We did our best to do this, do that, do this, do that. But we ended up pulling the trigger because we didn't have an option. I think we were probably the #1 seller of the watch boxes on Etsy.
And we knew Father's Day was coming up, Christmas was next.
That's right.
We're gonna need a large supply of these than just what Amazon has.
Yeah. Well, because we kept selling out the sellers on Amazon, and we never knew when that was going to come back. We were checking every day.
We were very dependent on somebody else's inventory,
right?
And it wasn't. There was no supply company back then that had that product.
Yeah, yeah. And so I think at that time, what ended up happening was we ended up pulling the trigger, and it was a huge risk again.
Yeah. Right.
It was a massive risk that we took,
here we are ordering a container of product
first time.
Out of my house. And we didn't realize the scale of how much volume that inventory is going to take up, right?
Yeah.
So here we are figuring out how to import a container, the clearance, what is an ISF, what is duties and taxes and all this stuff.
Yeah.
We get it cleared. It's on the way. Trucker calls us. What happens?
Well, you weren't there.
I know. That's why I'm asking you. I conveniently took a vacation that day. Well, you never know when those containers are going to show up. So.
Yeah, you never know when they get delayed, when they show up. So Marc was on vacation on our first container. Fortunately, it was a 20-foot container. Unfortunately, it was in Arizona during the summer.
And there was no dock.
And there was no dock, correct. And I thought for some reason 3 of us could unload the whole thing for the first time. So you have to consider in the container, it was probably like easily 120, 130 degrees. And
Well, where did we do it at?
And the container came, and because we didn't have a warehouse and we really didn't know how to navigate that, we ended up renting what was like 6 storage units in a storage facility.
Like the biggest units they had.
The biggest, we're like, whatever unit comes in, it's ours. And we literally like whatever storage unit was there, we just took all the storage units and yeah, there were 3 of us, and out of the 3 of us, 1 of us left, and the second person couldn't handle heat. So here I am, my first container unload, and I didn't have any option. There was no like Upworks, there was no like Craigslist, there was nothing. And I go to the driver and I'm like, listen, bro, I'm about to give you $20 and you can help me clear out the rest of this container. You get in the container and I'll unload it. He was a champion. I wish I could meet that guy.
The truck
again.
driver ended up helping you.
The truck driver helped me. I had to bring all the goods down. There were like 10 pallets outside because I was the only one left. I didn't have to wrap it, fortunately, but then I had to take it from the outside, take it downstairs, and then unload it into our units. It took forever, and it was hellishly hot.
Yeah.
But we got it done.
You know, and that was our first container, and that was our first experience, you know, with China and factories. And I think we have a lot of learning since then of all the containers we've gotten since then. But one of the pitfalls we ran into was the quality of the product.
Yes.
The consistency from order to order, the packaging, the colors, the sizing, you know, defects. How do we, you know, rectify that? Or, you know, and one of the issues with the watch boxes was the leather gluing like on the side, and certain parts sometimes would come up.
Yeah.
And we're like, oh my God, we can't return this. This isn't Amazon anymore. Nope. What do we do?
Nope. We couldn't. Not only that, the latches used to fall off, and sometimes the glass used to pop out.
Yeah.
Or product used to be broken. And yeah, I mean, what do you do? We couldn't really do much with it, right? That was one of probably the biggest first problems we ran into, was realizing that, hey, we are sort of the supplier. We can't return this product. We have to eat it, right? And so as we kind of got on this journey, what ended up happening was that we had a lot of inventory. The inventory that was bad, we couldn't do out of anything, and we had a lot of sitting inventory.
Yeah.
Right. And I think we were innovating and getting so many new products at the time that wasn't available on the major supplier sites, that we had the idea of, hey, let's start supplying the blanks, and let's start growing. You know, let's start giving us a chance to sort of keep getting these products at these prices, but let's grow the industry as a whole.
But I think, you know, one of the learnings we had is we became hyper focused on product quality, understanding how factories worked, how that product was made, understanding, you know, the relationship in China. And what did we do? We decided to go to China, right? Like, we're going to go and get in the weeds of things and figure this out. I want to see how this thing is made, right? And that was really interesting to get into those factories over there and understand how efficient they are, why they do certain things. And they're like, wait, why did you do it that way? We thought about doing it this way. But having the factory understand what the goal of that product was, right? Like, this product is for, you know, the end user of a laser engraver, right? This glass needs to be perfect. There can't be any glue marks on it. You know, it needs to be secured. And it needs to be a certain type of glass so it engraves well.
Correct.
Like, this hyper focus we went into of like making sure these products worked for customization was insane.
Yeah, and I think we still run into issues with that today. I think, you know, we go to these factories and they're not building products for the lasering industry. They're not building it for the sublimation industry, right? They're just building the product to build a product to sell, right? But we 100%. Like, that trip was mind-blowing, and it was scary because it was the first time that we were going to China. We didn't know what to expect, and we definitely had, you know, tons and tons of learnings from that trip. But I think one of the big ones that I remember is going there and truly understanding that you can actually get better quality product out of China.
Yeah.
It's just that, like, you just have to ask. Nobody asks. They just want the cheapest, right?
Yeah.
And so we I think that's been one of my biggest learnings from that, and I think that's helped us at MakerFlow to not have the cheapest product. Like, I think I pride myself in that. Like, we work on the quality of the product, the packaging. Like, we've kind of stopped caring to make the cheapest product because we know that we don't have to. Yeah. I think that's one of the biggest takeaways that I've had about this whole experience is being like the supplier.
Yeah, having uniqueness in our products, not just doing what everyone else is doing, but finding value adds to products and understanding what our customers are wanting. Remember, we added the little cleaning cloth for the glass and the watches, right? Yeah. Like, what else can we add to this product that brings value that nobody else is doing?
Yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of the conversations we have when we're, I mean, it's so funny, when we're trying to come up with products, we're not talking about how to make it the cheapest. Yeah. Right? We're in fact making it more expensive because we're just adding so much that we get to a point where we go, okay, maybe we added too much, you know? So I think our focus is always on USP, quality, you know, how good it is, and not as much as, you know, is it the cheapest? And like, I go to bed at night, I'm pretty damn happy about that. Yeah. Right. And I mean that, like, we are not the cheapest, and that's okay. But I know that we're putting out good product.
Yeah. And for those of you who don't know what a USP is, it's a unique selling proposition, and that's something that we take with high regard here at MakerFlow. We want to make sure our products have different USPs in the industry that people maybe have never even seen before. Yeah. For example, like our 40-ounce tumbler with a patent pending handle that allows you to engrave around the tumbler with just removing the handle with a twist. Yeah. You know, that's never before been seen.
Or the pen that we came up with, you know, with the barrel, you know, that you could just remove and customize and put it right back, you know, It really simplifies things. But I think if there's one thing, you know, this is the story of MakerFlow, right? Yeah. And if we were to cap it all together, from everything we talk about a lot of things. I think it feels like we've been talking forever, but some of the biggest takeaways for me is, you know, if you're starting out, right, and I'll let you go after me, but if you're starting out as a small business, focus your energy on figuring out your why, okay? We'll get into this next part more in detail, maybe on another podcast or something else, but you want to today build a brand. You want to make sure you become the brand and your business becomes the brand. You need to make sure you brand yourself. It's highly important that you do so, right? And focus, make sure that your marketing, make sure what you do and what you put out in the universe is not that I have the cheapest product. Mm-hmm. You need and want to have that brand and be known to be selling quality product that you believe in. And if I was to summarize, you know, our journey, I'd say that's what I've kind of settled on. Like, that's what's important to me. Yeah. And I think that's how MakerFlow grows as we move forward.
Yeah, I mean, I think people buy people, right? People don't buy products. They want to connect with somebody. They want to buy from a person that they know, like, and trust, right? Yeah. So if they can know you, they can like you, and they trust you, well, they're going to buy from that person rather than somebody else. So I think that's powerful to understand, you know, is you can't be a faceless business or a company. You really need to get yourself out there, be visible on social media, show your face, give value to customers, and they're going to relate to that, and they're going to want to do business with you.
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%. And I think we talk about that a lot, you know, but it's very hard to move away from it as well, right? You get into the minutia of the everyday and you forget that, but you got to come back to that, people by people. Absolutely. I love that.
So any closing remarks here as we kind of come to the end of our journey, and that's kind of how MakerFlow started, right? Is we had unique products that other people were getting their eyeballs on and they wanted, so we decided to start MakerFlow. Any closing remarks?
No, well, yeah. I mean, I would just say that you and I are always thinking, we're not thinking how MakerFlow can grow. I think, well, we are, right? But I think the bigger conversations we have is how the industry as a whole can grow. Because what we have seen in the last 10, 15 years is there hasn't been massive growth. It feels like it's stagnating, right? And our conversations are always, how can we empower, right? How can we empower possibilities? Whether it's through, well, it's definitely through people, right? But it's through innovation, right? It's through pivoting. But if we just do it internally, then how are we helping the industry, right? We got to be good, but I want to do good too, and I want to make sure that, you know, whether it's the podcast or whatever it is, that we're helping the industry grow as much as possible. And if we all grow together, how great would that be, right?
Yeah.
So I think MakerFlow's future, for me especially, is not only for MakerFlow to grow, but everyone that we service to grow even more, right? So I think that would kind of be my what's ahead for MakerFlow for me. But I don't know, maybe that's a little bit different for you or some of the same.
Yeah, absolutely. Something as you were speaking, it made me, one of the pivots that we had when we had the engraving business was, I had a friend of mine, Janine,
Yes.
and she knew I had this engraving business, and she asked me if I had any misprints. And I was like, Janine, why do you want my misprints? And she's like, well, I'm just going to epoxy and glitter over them. And I was like, okay. I'm like, huh. So there's a need for these tumblers, whether they're decorated on or misprinted. And that was also a pivotal moment of when we started MakerFlow and decided to sell tumblers. And it's just interesting how you got to really think about the moment that you're in and how that could pivot into a whole new business or really the direction of your current business.
Yeah.
And really just think about all those moments and not taking them for granted.
Yeah. Well, I think we went all over the place,
Yeah.
and we knew this was going to happen. I'm not even sure if the timeline of how we told the stories made sense. But hey, we're here. No, I'm being told it didn't. Okay. So we confused everybody. Fantastic, which means you get to see more of us. So no, with further ado, I hope this was entertaining. I hope there were some lessons.
Yeah, we want to thank everybody for listening. Do we have any questions or anything, any last minute?
I just want to give a shout out. We had a lot of people and they were extremely engaged. They really enjoyed what you guys had to say. It resonated with a lot of them. So we definitely need to keep this up. It sounds like they want to see more of you guys.
All right. So if you guys didn't hear that, a lot of great comments and an engaged audience here that wants to see more of this. And if you want to see more of it, please feel free to reach out to us, DM, email us, let us know, or comment on this podcast video or post, and let us know what you'd like to see next. Whether you want to learn more about marketing, advertising, how to grow your business, SEO, how to source products, that'll kind of direct the direction that we go for our next podcast, and we'll take it from our audience and what they want to hear and go from there. So thank you to all our supporters from day one. Thank you for those for tuning in. Make sure you like and subscribe to our channels, and we'll see you next time.
See you next time. Whoop, whoop.